The Iron Criminal returns because Riri Williams is back in episode 2 of what is quickly shaping up to be the one and only season of Ironheart. And this time around, she's upping her criminal resume because there's going to be blackmail, there's going to be extortion, there's going to be assault, there's going to be assault with a deadly weapon, there's going to be criminal trespassing, there's going to be destruction of property, there's going to be attempted murder, and oh yes, theft, because you can't forget the theft. So we start off this episode with the fact that, Natalie is back. That's the AI that Riri did. And she's all like, what are you? I mean, like, I figured that out in 1 second. You clearly had your brainwaves connected to it, and because you were thinking of your friend, it basically copied her onto the AI system. But apparently, the genius hasn't figured that out yet. So there's that, because that's what's going on. And the weird thing about this is that Natalie is actually likable. I'm serious. Natalie is actually likable. She is funny. She is bubbly. She is interesting. Meanwhile, Riri walks around looking like someone slapped her with seriousness and just never stopped slapping. That's just it's not good. It's not good at all. But Natalie is actually fun. She's actually, enjoyable. But we don't get that because reasons, I guess. That's my only thing here. You understand me? So they go through this back and forth thing there with Natalie talking about it, and Riri is like, this is some kind of glitch, and she's going to delete her and hopefully forget this weird glitch ever happened, because sure, why not? That's what stuff is. And so, but she wants to erase Natalie, who again, as I say, is really the only interesting character in this so far, but who gives a flying crap. And she was talking about how she wanted to create some Wakandan AI. And again, it's come back to the fact that, you were talking about how you needed millions of dollars to build your AI, and yet you didn't need millions of dollars because you built the AI. So once again, what an idiot she is. But that's how that is going on. And then, her mother comes to the door and asks her, you got a guy in there? And she's, no, you got a girl in there? Because it wouldn't be the MCU if everyone wasn't gay in one form or another, because that's what goes on. That's what they try to push here. So there it is. So she ends up there with her, doing her nonsense on what she has to do. And then she has to go out to see the Hood and his gang, because why not? They are there. And yeah, and we have Shea Coulee here, because I don't know how anybody's supposed to believe this person is a hacker with 12-inch nails, but whatever. Whatever they want to do. So she really shows up there, and they're all ready to do what they have to do. And they get a backstory on what was happening, how Shea Coulee was doing some nonsense, and then they met Shea Coulee there, and then you had then you had the testosterone twins was fighting. It had this next one was trying to burn down some car, and they came along, and that's the kind of nonsense that they're into, because why not? And the thing is that they want to go after this woman who Sheila Zarate, I believe her name is, that's if I pronounce that incorrectly, sorry, but she has this company called Tunnel, and it's spelled TNNL, to pronounce tunnel. And what this woman does is that she has utilized the underground subway system that runs throughout Chicago. And she has built this sort of underground, tunnel system where so that once so people could go down into it and drive there and get away from all the traffic and stuff up up above, because she's a hateful bitch for doing this. Apparently, you know, finding a way to utilize the underground space is somehow wrong. And the way they try to justify this nonsense is that, you know, she is somehow displacing people by doing this, because apparently when you have underground networks that run throughout an entire metropolitan city that doesn't affect anybody above ground, and you utilize the underground system, that in some way affects the people who are above ground and are no way inconvenienced by this at all, because there are trains that run underground and they don't displace anybody. But that's the kind of idiotic shit that they're trying to pass here as some kind of justification for their crimes, right? That's what they're doing. So they're planning to upload some virus and all of that on some flash drive and all of this nonsense and whatnot. And Riri Williams' only question is, so when do we get paid? Because this is a hero, people. You understand me? She isn't concerned about the fact that they're robbing from this woman who has done nothing more than use her common sense to fix a problem in the city. No, something idiot Riri could have done, but no. She isn't concerned that they're robbing this woman. Her only concern is, when are they getting paid? Because apparently now in the MCU, everybody has a price. So then explain something to me then. In the upcoming Fantastic Four movie, have they considered just paying Galactus to leave? I mean, because everybody have a price. You know, I'm sure if you drop a couple billion, Thanos would be like, you know what? Earth is really my scene right now, Jed. I just got bunks, right? Y'all you got that boy, yeah, right, and go, because everybody had a price. Because this is the hero that you want people to associate with, and this hero is not concerned with ripping off a woman who has done nothing other than use her ingenuity and company to fix a problem in the city and, help people, something this moron couldn't do. No, she just wants to get paid, and their justification for robbing this woman is that, she and her underground tunnel network is displacing people who live above ground and are in no way, shape, or form affected by any of this. It hadn't reached a whole new level as stupid to write at this way, but that's what they're doing, because why not? That's what they do. So Riri goes back there and she needs to get her suit working, but it isn't up and running. And then Natalie comes back, and once again, Natalie is the only one I have any kind of connection to, because she's actually seems fun and interesting, the way that Yelena was before they messed that up. But yeah, so she's there, and what happens is that Riri needs to get some parts for what's going on with her suit. She needs to get some stuff, so Natalie accesses the dark web and finds somebody who has all this stuff there. But then they were going through this thing about how, Natalie's talking about how, she and Riri used to do this whole Bonnie and Clyde thing, and Natalie was Beyonce and Riri was Jay-Z. Yeah, guess we know why her mother was asking if she had a girl in there, right? And Riri's like, how do you remember something that that Natalie would have known. Well, maybe, my dear, it's because you know it. And your memories of Natalie is what has created this AI. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure this out, but they keep telling everybody she's a genius, and yet at every turn she shows she's dumber than a bag of rocks. But why not? So, yeah, so she finds out this place where this person has this stuff, and there's this kid selling some kid with the cat who helped at the time. He's selling juices and stuff there. And I don't know how it works in Chicago, but are kids that young allowed to be working on the streets in the middle of the day? Isn't that illegal? And they're child labor laws or something? But apparently it's not, because when you're a black kid, apparently, you have to hustle because everybody's against you. The man is literally always there. Yeah, but it's the white people that are racist, sure. Why not? So Riri totes her Iron Man ripoff suit onto the train, and then at that time decides to steal a flag from a sleeping man to cover the Iron Man ripoff suit that everybody has already seen. She never considered to, cover it before she left. No. She waits until she gets on the train and then does that after everyone's already seen it. Because everyone's an idiot. That's sensible. So she goes there with her stuff, and she goes to see this guy there, and she goes there to see him, and when she arrives there, there's this dog taking a crap on the lawn, and I know exactly what you're thinking. This is a perfect representation of this show. Right there. That's it. And the guy who lives there tells the woman that, could she get her dog to stop crapping on his lawn, even though that isn't actually his lawn, that's more like the sidewalk, but whatever. So she basically just blows him off, and we could tell that he's a giant loser. And because they need to make that even evident, his groceries fall, and Riri help him pick it up. And he asks her wishes, and she says, I'm selling chocolate bars for my troop, because apparently we're supposed to believe that she's 14, or maybe 12 or 9. I honestly don't know how old girls are supposed to be, but apparently we're supposed to believe that. And because he needs to be as racist as possible, he's like, you need a permit for that, but I'm willing to overlook it and support you because you're an underprivileged youth. All right, let's just go there. So she immediately has him take her into her house, into his house, where she immediately starts to rummage through his place, and then basically tells him that she's looking, because apparently he has a whole bunch of illegal technology and weapons for some reason, and this guy looks like he's a gigantic cock. But she tells him that, if he doesn't tell her where it is, she is going to anonymously call the FBI and turn him in. And he's like, I can't last in prison. Have you seen Orange is the New Black? They'll eat me alive. So it's blackmail now, right? So, theft and now blackmail. Okay, not a problem. I guess that's just what it is. And then they go on this road trip sort of thing there, and he starts to cry. And she's like, are you crying because I'm blackmailing you? Because she knows she's blackmailing him, and he's like, no, it's just involuntary. And he apparently just involuntarily cries multiple times a day because if we needed any more proof that this guy is a loser, well, there it is, right? And he's just there because that's what's happening and thing and then his name is Joe, and he tells her that he gets blackmailed like twice a day, and she's like, twice? What other shady things are you into, Joe? I mean, even though him today, apparently she's concerned that he's being blackmailed by other people. I don't get it. I really don't. And then she tells him, don't let Frank or your shitty neighbor or anybody else walk all over you. You've got to demand respect. Ay, ay, ay. Ah, respect is earned. It's not demanded. You don't demand respect. You earn respect. That's what heroes know. But this little sycophant isn't a hero. And I don't know why they keep wanting you to think so, but that's what we're getting. So then they start to sing some Alanis Morissette song, and then we get back to Natalie, the only character in this that has a personality, and she's in the computer because Riri downloaded the AI from her suit and put it into a laptop, and then Natalie finds a way out of the laptop because why not? And then she shows up there as a hologram to Riri's mother, and they kind of talk for a little bit, and then while that's going on, Riri and Joe are basically having a road trip and singing, I think it's Alana Morissette songs for some reason, because that's how people bond on road trips, I guess. So he takes her to his bunker, and she's basically telling him, don't you try anything. And I'm like, you're 4 foot, maybe like 4 foot 10 inches tall. You probably weigh like 90 pounds soaking wet, and I am confident you can kick this guy's ass. But okay, why not? Yeah, that's what we want, right? So yeah. So he takes her in there and opens up his bunker, and she goes in, and this guy has a whole bunch of stuff. There's a missile right there, and she's asking like, are you planning to take over the world or something? And I'm like, yeah, the guy who cries in his car probably 3 times a day. Okay, let's be honest, probably 3 times in the morning alone, and various times throughout the rest of the day, is probably planning to take over the world. And he tells her that it's just a quirk, and he really started to collect this stuff to get closer to his dad. And I'm guessing his father is probably Obadiah Stane or something, because they had to tie that into something there. And he's like he doesn't have a shady bunker. It literally is a shady bunker, but whatever. And she's just going around there pulling stuff out and things, and then he tells her that the reason why he into technology is because technology, fathers of believe that technology is meant to advance humanity, replace limbs, help people, all this sort of stuff, all this thing. And then he basically, and he says, this is the tip of the iceberg. And then he asks her, why do you why did you build why did you build your suit? And she's like, because I could, not because you wanted to, create something that would have helped firemen, police officers, people who have to deal with natural disasters, first responders, stuff like that. No, because you wanted to. And again, I'm forced to remind you that she actually did build the suit, complete it, and then steal it from MIT. Again, if you had already built it, your work was done at MIT, but no, that would have been too much sensible, so whatever. So we get this nonsense. Get back to her mother. They're talking with Natalie AI because that's what's going on, and she's building this suit there, and that time out than the other, and she asks him to hand her this part there, and he's like, he doesn't want to touch it because he doesn't want to get his fingerprints on it. So she's like, well, just use up some gloves and pass it over. And he's like, a hair follicle could get on it. And I'm like, okay, you don't want to leave any fingerprints or DNA evidence, like, your fingerprints all over the door when you open it. The fact that there's a retinal scanner tuned to your specific retina, or the fact that you had to carry all this shit in there, right? So your fingerprints are all over it, but you don't want to leave any fingerprints. Like, what idiot wrote this? Oh my God. Ay, ay, ay. I tell you, boy, I tell you, I really tell you. And they have some ridiculous back and forth about some AI and stuff like that. But, and then, so all of that nonsense is going on and whatnot and stuff. And she's encouraging him to hold the device and all of that and stuff. And then, she basically asks her, so where is your arc reactor? And she's like, they don't exactly give those away. It's not easy to get out. I'm just wondering, wait, how did Tony Stark build his arc reactor again?
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And then she says her suit is solar and wind powered. Okay, I could understand the solar. It's, the greatest source of energy and heat on the planet. So, okay, solar. But how is it wind powered? You'd need a giant turbine to power. And I've never seen you charging up this suit with solar energy or with wind energy. I've literally seen you plugging the suit into the electrical circuits at your house to charge it. So how is it solar powered? This, ay, boy, way. So, she gets a call from Klong, who is a member of, the Hood's gang, who at this point, I think we should just call them the Gaylords of Crime, because Klong is a member and the whole freaking circus is there. So the suit there, and she's up and she goes, and they are going to, as I say, they have this whole plan with this thing about it. Now, keep in mind that Eric Andre was on the team before Riri, who they haven't been able to get in contact. She hasn't been able to get in contact with Eric Andre. I don't know, maybe they killed him. I really don't know. But considering this plan literally called for someone with a mech suit, how were you planning to pull this off if you hadn't met Riri? That's an interesting question, but at this point, nobody cares. So while they are there and they literally start to set up their criminal activities, in comes the Hood's people. And we have I throw knives which injure people, causing, that's assault with a deadly weapon. We have Testosterone Mary over here who beats up people, that's assault. And we have Testosterone Betty over here who also beat up people, that's also a crime. And keep in mind, none of these idiots are wearing masks. None of them are wearing gloves. So their fingerprints and faces are all over everywhere. But that's how you do crime, people. Yeah, so they come in. Riri is going down there, and this is the woman in her car. I tell you, and her whole thing is just, she built a tunnel system, but why not? There, Riri shows up. She goes in while the rest of them are assaulting these people, especially the guards who are just doing their jobs. And while all of that is going on, you understand me? Because that makes sense. That's what people do. Riri's flying around in there. And then, Natalie shows up, and that causes Riri to go off course. And because, Natalie, with any kind of personality there. But what's that got to do with anything? Because that's just the way that is. So they have to, Riri ends up dropping they had this flash drive that Shea Coulee had with some virus on it, and Riri ends up dropping it because Natalie surprised her. But Natalie knows that she could hack into the system, and that would actually work even better. So why not? Because these kind of things happen. And maybe it's just me, but I'm thinking that the police will have a really easy time finding these people, because I'm pretty sure you could pick Shea Coulee out of a lineup anywhere. But whatever. So yeah, they're going to get it done. Riri goes on there and puts on his stuff while that is happening. The whole underground system of cars are moving, because again, it's not actually doing anything to anybody, but they get into the system. Okay. And then the hood shows up in the woman's car, the owner of Tunnel. And he basically says to her, listen, my criminal cohorts have taken control of your system, and we've all exposed our faces and left our fingerprints everywhere, so it'll be very easy for you to track us down. And we have control of this. But to make this, somewhat legitimate, we have a contract that we want you to sign that gives us, shares and money in your company. And once you do that, we'll give it back to you. Now, I was a police officer, so I can tell you that anything that you sign under duress is not viable in court. And I can't be certain, but I don't think that the hood wants to go to court to fight this case. So this woman could very easily sign this contract, have them leave, and then have the police hunt them down and shoot them, because that makes sense. But that's not how this works. So he literally, and he wants equity in the company and a code and all this shit. And she just signs it, and they're like, okay, we're good. And then they just, and they're like, yeah, we got everything. She signed, we can go, yeah. And again, I'm pretty sure anybody could pick this person out of a lineup. So I don't know what the hell going on here, but all right, whatever. Riri comes back up there, and Natalie's there, and one of the security guard comes, and he's pulled his weapon there, and Natalie freezes up. And it's clear the reason Natalie freezes up is because, Riri downloaded the memories, and she still has trauma of the whole shooting stuff there. And so the face plate won't come down, even though the guard has a pretty good look at her face now. And he's telling her what's going on. But then, the hood ends up shooting the man. So that's attempted murder. I mean, even if you just shot him in the arm, that's attempted murder. Doesn't matter what's going on. Yeah, he shot the guy, and that's what's up. But then they all go back to their lair, the gay lords of crime are all there and they're celebrating pulling off this crime. And Riri is suddenly wants to pretend that she has a conscience and it's all like the security guard got shot and Klong is like, yeah, he's okay. And Riri's like, yeah, but he got hurt. And I'm wondering, and exactly how much money is it going to take for you to not give a shit anymore? Because we all know that your integrity is for sale, but whatever. So then she gets a whole wants to know some nonsense about the hood that nobody cares about because that's what's going on. And then they come out and they have a toast to the fact that yeah, we committed crime, we extorted this woman who did nothing to us because we're all a bunch of despicable bastards. Cheers, everybody. And that's what's going on. And Riri got her money because that's all she cares about. And then that nonsense happens. So she's there, she talks with Natalie. Natalie says she doesn't remember what's going on and all of that because it's all this stuff. And then Natalie tells Riri that she sensed some weird energy coming from the hood and she thinks he's mixed up in some shady shit. And I'm like, my dear, he literally runs a crew that I at this point have named the Gay Lords of Crime. I think that sleazy stuff that ship has long sailed, but all right. So that's what's going on. And then, she has to go to some kind of party thing with this guy who came in the first episode and was like, hey, black people. And these people are singing something. I don't know what the hell they're singing, honestly. I really don't. Really don't. But that's what was going on. And she's there with them. And then, talking about the mixtape, apparently it was supposed to have Natalie's voice on it because that's not creepy at all. So, whatever. That's how that works. And meanwhile, the hood is there and he's, you see the tattoo thing on his back and stuff spreading. And it's all of this is connected to Mephisto and all of that. But that's what's going on. And I'm not sure how we're supposed to feel about any of this because these people are criminals. They haven't done anything worthwhile at all. They're just freaking disturbing. But whatever, Riri goes back home there and talks a bit with her mother because that's stuff that's happening. And then Joe ends up coming outside to he has a sign there, the live, laugh, love, and he throws away the sign. And then because that happens, I guess. And then he literally steps in a pile of this shoe. It's what he steps in a pile of this shoe. So what does he do? He goes across the road and cuts up all the flowers of the woman whose dog was crapping this shoe onto his lawn, even though it's not his lawn, it's the pavement. And that was really it because that's the episode. So yes, so Riri's criminal career has blossomed and now she has done blackmail, extortion, been a part of assault with a deadly weapon, assault, more theft, more extortion, attempted murder, and the list just goes on. How is this a hero? I don't know. But we're supposed to believe this nonsense is making any sense at all. Well, my final rating for episode 2 of Ironheart, I will give it 3. Out of 5 because the crap just keeps going. I'll be here for episode 3. and I'll see you then.